The only thing that happened overnight was the visibility. The only thing was overnight visibility. The success was years.
I see an opportunity, trust my intuition and gut that I can sniff out opportunity and go at it, right?
It's like you plant a seed in good soil and you give it the sun and you give it the water and you give it the oxygen and you baby it and nothing shows on the surface. One day you will wake up and it'll feel like it's an overnight something happened. The truth is, it just had the opportunity to germinate enough, right? And kind of like sprout through that soil and be visible. That visibility happens seemingly overnight, but my goodness, what it takes.
In today's episode of Walk the Talk with Adriana.
Welcome here. I'm so excited to have you today. Everyone, this is Chris Telfer, a very dear friend of mine, a former employer of mine, and just a man that wears so many hats. A great example to the people of my generation, the younger generation, and really anyone who has ever encountered or crossed paths with him. Him and his bride, Jenny, have just been incredible to have alongside my path for years now. We've known each other for years. And I'm just really honored to have you here today. Thank you for being here.
Oh, well, thanks for inviting. Thanks for having me. It's really humbling to be here, for sure.
The reason I thought about inviting you and having a conversation is because as I was looking at what are the topics I want to dive deeper into and maybe challenge some of the constructs and some of the things that we, kind of deal with or encounter parts of our culture and society, to really pull the curtains back a little bit and talk about some of the things that maybe are uncomfortable, really, really hopefully very helpful and inspiring at the end of the day, right? And so the topic I picked for us today is, the myth of overnight success. And to set the stage lightly, Chris Telfer, my dear friend here, you are the owner and founder and CEO and see everything of an amazing staffing and managed services company called Red Door Collaborative. And so I used to be part of the amazing team and the amazing company for about 5 years. And you have built something amazing from ground zero. Before that, you've spent time wearing a lot of hats. You're also a father of 3. And I think it's easy to look at someone like you and be like, oh, it must be nice. It's such great success you have. You must have had the right people pulling in for you. You must have had, the right luck on your side. And I think we've all seen that image that's been floating on the internet with the iceberg, right? With like, you see the tip, but then you really don't see that. But I don't think we really internalize what that means. And I don't think we spend enough time talking about this myth of how success comes about. And is there anything really overnight?
Yeah.
So with that context set, I want to just turn into you and take me back to the beginning of Chris Telfer as a young man. Who were you before Red Door Collaborative?
Yeah.
Before you decided to go into building this empire, which I don't think you even knew what you're going to build, right? Like there are dozens and dozens of people depending on you and the business, and you are giving them their bread and butter. And I think that's just remarkable to get to that place. It is one of the hardest things to do, that kind of leadership where you can not only spike something up, but sustain and grow. And so turning it over to you, take us back to the beginning.
Oh, you're super sweet. Yeah, no joke. Running, operating, starting a business is incredibly rewarding, but it can be incredibly trying too. And it could also be a lonely place, which is why community and great people around you are so important. And I think when I look back and I reflect, just back on my journey specifically, you're absolutely right. The dream was never to start an agency. I think some people are very blessed with knowing what they want to do at a very young age. That was not me.
I want to be an astronaut.
Right.
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
Like, who are those people?
Yeah,
What are they made of?
exactly. I learned a lot about what I like by trying a lot of things and learning about what I didn't like, right? And so I also think a lot of who I am and what I do is based upon work ethic that was instilled in me by my mom and my dad, right? My dad was an ex-Vietnam War veteran, and then was a mailman. And he worked
Mm.
really hard on the weekends, supporting my mom as they both managed four fourplexes together. So I spent my weekends drywall patching and working and cleaning. My mom managed those apartments. She cleaned hotel rooms. They were just hardworking people and really honorable people, right? And so I think they instilled a really great work ethic in me. They also, neither of them went to college, so education was really important for them as well, right? And so encouraging me to go to university and put in the work to do that. Um,
What did you what did
I
you what did you go to college for, real quick?
Yeah, that's a good question. I started out going into a medical path, and then I remember the first science
Interesting.
class dissecting a cadaver, and I was like, I'm good.
Yep,
Um,
that would have been me.
yeah, I was like, I'm gonna go more earth sciences sort of thing. And so growing up in Colorado, you get a lot of crazy weather, hail, tornadoes, snow, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So I went more applied mathematics and physics and did meteorology and journalism. And so I became a weatherman,
So
which is
hold on, that's a
hilarious enough.
spectrum. Applied mathematics, chemistry, like that's a spectrum. That
It
is
is.
not even the
It
same
is.
vertical. Can you
It
double
it
click on that real quick?
it doesn't sound like it, but when you start to get into meteorology and you start to understand how these computer models work and function, it is really technical, right? So you have all these
I mean,
computer
imagine
modeling
that. I just
systems. I
never
had
thought
to,
about it as like applied mathematics.
oh my gosh,
That's never occurred to me.
it was kind of crazy. The classes I had to take, it was like thermo and thermodynamics, all the way up through Calc 3 differential equations,
Yeah.
a lot of physics, cloud physics, rain physics, all of these computer sciences. I had to take Python, C sharp. So I had to understand how these models work and function, how
That's
radar refracts,
interesting.
yeah, different
I did not
things and
know that
determine it. It
about
was
you.
very, very technical, right? And so,
And you were creative. You were
mhm,
creative. You then okay, yeah, okay, keep
yes,
going.
yes. I think, and speaking of which, I think you learn about yourself over time. I feel like I'm very evenly weighted, like left brain, right brain. I
Mhm.
need creativity, but I like organization and
Problem
I like
solving.
sciences and I'm curious. And even having three kids now, I can see my 9-year-old, he's just very curious. He wants to know how everything works
Mm.
and functions and he loves it, right? And I think in a lot of ways we see ourselves sometimes in our kids, and I was the same way, right? So so I doubled majored in journalism and meteorology and became a weatherman for a little bit. So I was interning at Channel 9 in Denver and at a news station called KGWN in Cheyenne. And I was driving to both places from Greeley, Colorado, um, and was hired, which was really great. And so when you get hired on as a morning meteorologist, um, you do a little bit of everything. And there was one morning um, where I showed up to the job and the cameraman called in sick. And so they needed someone to film one of the news anchors down at the courthouse. And so I got a crash car course on the SAT truck and the camera. And I'm driving to this courthouse and I'm like, what am I doing? Right? This is crazy. And so from that point on, I started being able to utilize these really good cameras. And at that time, HD was becoming really, really popular. And Channel 9 was the
Mhm.
first news station in the country to go fully digital. So I was able to play with all these really great toys and learn all of this new technology and these new systems. And I learned that I loved being behind the camera rather than in front of it. Right.
That
And
is
so,
interesting.
yeah, it was really interesting. So I broke off from that. I went and traveled for about 2 years doing with a faith-based organization, mm, essentially helping different cultures around the world, everything from food and sustainability to just overall help and support in impoverished areas. And because I had worked at an agency and at a news station, I was a part of a media team, and that's actually where I met my wife, Jenny, right? Because she and I led a media team doing documentaries, storytelling, and working with a team globally, which I went from a news station of having every resource at my disposal at any time I wanted to, trying to figure out how to upload a video at an internet cafe in Johannesburg, right? It was wild. I went from a lot of resources to not a lot of resources and had to get very creative. And I do think there's that element in the world of creativity where if you want to be a creative, therefore you're messy, you're disorganized, right? If
Right. There's
anything,
that stereotype. Yeah.
it's exactly right. But the creatives
Yeah.
that I've met over time in a lot of different um, genres or mediums of creativity, generally they're very organized, they're very thorough, they're very passionate, and they're very clear about what they want and what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And so we had to learn how to tell these stories uh, in an environment that was constantly changing as we were traveling with limited resources. And I feel like when you're forced to use that creative energy to create different scenarios and to have to think through how to do something, it grows you. And I learned a lot about myself, and my wife and I learned how to work as a team and run a team. We came back. I worked different jobs for a while. We got married, working odd end jobs, things of that nature. And I found an opportunity in the cloud space. And I think because of my technical background of applied mathematics and physics, because I had to take computer modeling, because I worked with a lot of people in that environment, I found it very easy to slide into this new technical world that I was learning. Right. And so I got a job at an agency that was contracting for Microsoft at the time and learned a lot about this new world that I didn't know about so much. And it was supporting the developer tools division. And I found it very interesting that a lot of my background and technical background, it made it really easy for me to connect with this new audience. But there's no way I could have seen that. You just kind of take
Right.
the next step ahead,
So why didn't you go back into, broadcasting, news industry,
Yeah.
even with the behind the camera and creative work, or, like kind of pursuing that path? Why tech? What was that pivot? Because I mean, you intentionally applied, or was that sort of like an opportunity to present it? You never thought about it.
It's a good question. That's a good question. After I came back from that trip and Jenny and I got married, I did work at an agency or two and learn how to do storytelling and work for other customers and do commercials, things of that nature. And although I appreciated it and I enjoyed it, um, I think I've always been someone that likes to challenge myself, right? And I've always really enjoyed technology. And so I found this position that blended both my creative skill set and storytelling, but also being able to help with this complicated genre that I was entering into in this tech world. And I felt as if there was an opportunity for me to help this audience tell better stories. And so it kind of bridged two different things I'm really passionate about. I love technology. I love what it does. I mean, even just thinking about working and traveling globally, doing visual storytelling, YouTube had just launched, Skype had just launched, all these new technologies were changing the game. Even the camera gear that we were buying, and the news station had a brand new camera that was about $300,000. And then all of a sudden, if you remember when Canon came out with the 5D Mark One,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden that this technology disrupted an industry where before you needed lots and lots of funds and money and an established
Yeah.
agency to get started. And now you had really, really smart young people that can tell great stories that were disrupting an industry. So technology has always been really interesting to me because it evens the playing field, right?
Yes.
In
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And I loved
Because
that. Yes.
speaking of that, right? Like I have
Yes.
my 70-old buddy
Yes.
here, which is like, you can when I bought it, right? Like I was an intern at KMPH Fox 26 in Central Valley in California. And it was right before my senior year. And I had bought this as an investment because I was, trying to be scrappy and creative. Like, how do I make side money and all? Like, poor student, right? I was a pretty poor student.
Right.
And I had saved for so long. I got this camera. And I have other ones, but this is such a sentimental thing because it was my first one, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I remember the camera that I was working on as part of my internship felt like a dinosaur, felt archaic at the time because like this was so much better quality. I did my senior project. It was like a short movie storytelling, no words, right? That was the assignment. It's like tell a story with no words, no script, use imagery and music. And I used a combination of that camera because it was also, it was a similar camera from my internship in my like video cinematography classroom, archaic stuff. And then I used the combo with that and my camera and like the quality difference, right? So to your point, I was like, why do we, and it was like this huge machine on your shoulder. It was like so clunky and uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh, using this, it was, so I totally remember what you're talking about. It does even the playing field.
It was changing. I still have my original camera as well, like from a sentimental perspective, same exact thing. Right. And
no, I bought other ones, many ones, but
saving up the funds, like, oh God, what am I doing? Right. And so, but yeah, I really love technology. I was, my mother-in-law, I remember when I was trying to figure out what to do, and Jenny was pregnant, and that changes a lot too, right? All of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a dad. How do I pursue things that are special to me, but also help create stability? And it's a different psyche when you're thinking about becoming a parent. When you become a parent, you start thinking about wealth generation and legacy and how you want to set your family up for success and all of these certain things. So, I completely changed. I was in that agency world for a while and kind of got burned out a little bit, had been doing things in the nonprofit sector and saw this opportunity that I was interested in. And so I took it, working for essentially a consultancy for Microsoft. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about project management, program management, and how to effectively be a good leader and lead a team of people in this whole tech area. And there was a meeting that I was a part of, and I was like the young guy on the meeting, right? And someone was mentioning like, gosh, if we could it was about something called application lifecycle management, right? And they were laughing. They're like, no one knows what this is. They're like, wouldn't it be great if someone could just set up a camera somewhere and just ask a bunch of people this question and kind of put this together, right? And so I had my 5D. I was working remotely in Louisville, Colorado, and obviously Microsoft is, in Washington State. And so I got off that meeting and I grabbed my camera and I went downtown to downtown Boulder, and I set the camera up and I flagged people down and I produced and edited and put this video together. And I sent it to my boss. And he was like, this is hilarious. I put graphics on it and everything. And it was like application lifecycle management was all about
like you were just asking people on this street, like like random people?
Random people, right?
I'm so curious about the answers you heard.
It was so funny. It was so funny because it was all about software. I think one person got the answer right. But I mean, one person was like, isn't that about birds? Their flat patterns.
Oh my God.
I was like, not really. Another person was like, isn't that about the plant cycle and the earth? And, it was like, no, but that was the whole point, right? They had come up with this own term and they were seeing the audience and people react and respond to that, which was both hilarious, two, really informative to that team. And three, just kind of a funny piece for that audience, for the developer audience to kind of laugh about it as a whole, right? One person got it right. He was funny. Technical in nature, right? So I did that, shot it back to my boss. They shot it to Mitra at the time, right?
Yeah.
Mitra saw it, and there was like an internal conference, and they, all of a sudden I go to this event, and this video that I had done by myself was up on this like jumbotron at this event, and I was laughing. And then that's kind of what started it. Everyone was like, "Who did that? Who
Yeah.
produced that?"
Yeah.
And they were
Yeah.
like, "That." I
Mhm.
remember I was sitting at a table eating, and I saw like a finger pointing like that direction
Yeah.
at me, and I was like, "Hey." Um, and so I think it was this element of like ask for forgiveness, not permission. I saw an
Mhm.
opportunity
Yes.
to use my creativity in a new environment, and that creativity was something of value for this team, right?
And I think this is the first example um, of kind of like that overnight success thing
Eh,
myth, because you could totally take the story and be like, oh, he just like had the good luck. He had
mm,
the good luck of
mm,
like it fell into the right people's hands at the right
mm,
time in the right place. And
right.
there's certainly an element that has to happen in that equation of right place, right time, and right people. But had it sucked, had that video been
Mm,
garbage, nobody, no right place, no right people, no right time would have mattered.
right.
And this is the way that I look at the whole definition and how, I think we interpret like overnight success. It's never overnight success. It's the skills that you've built over years at that point, right? Both as a weatherman, working across the seas and being creative and doing things from a scrappy place that forced you to think so
Mm,
outside the box, that enabled you and equipped you for that right time, right place. So the only thing that happened overnight was the visibility. The
mm,
only thing was overnight visibility. The success was years, right? And I just love that story. Like that's instantly that came to mind. I'm like, that is so easy to take that and interpret as like, oh, he just got lucky.
mhm. Exactly.
No,
Exactly.
there would have been no luck if that video would have been just bad in every way, right? If you didn't have not only the skills, but also the good judgment, like to insert the humor in the right place in the right time, which by the way is also a skill that's very hard to acquire. It's like, it's mostly a talent, right? But it gets nurtured and improved by continuously kind of learning and, creating
Right.
things.
Yeah, right. And even when I was traveling and doing different shows and stuff, there were a couple of networks that wanted to potentially pick up a show idea from travels or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. And it never seemed to work out. There was a lot of complicated elements of it. And so I feel like I'd always been behind something of kind of pushing to elevate, and it hadn't quite worked.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of success is, to your point, kind of the iceberg piece is people see one success when there's a myriad of failure to get there, right? Lots of things that
Yep.
you're trying, and you think this is going to be it. Even what I was doing as a career was me trying a lot of different things and finding where I fit in and what I was good at and what I thought I'd like and what I didn't like. And it was just a lot of trying, right?
Yeah.
Even at the age that I'm at now, there's things that I'm learning and relearning and so on and so forth, right? And so that, to your point, I could have shown him that video. I could have gotten in trouble, right? Like, you're being paid to do this. What the hell you're doing? Now, I did do it on my
Yeah.
own time on the weekend, right? Um, but it was a risk and an opportunity that I can bring a skill set that this team didn't have to the table, and it did work,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Sometimes it's a matter of like, what's the worst case scenario? And you make that calculated risk of, well, what if the worst that can happen is I'll get in trouble, like very, very unlikely I'll get fired.
yeah,
You have to take that risk if you really
yeah,
believe in that.
correct. Yeah, I think for me, I'm comfortable taking that risk. I think for me, it's more so I tend to look back and try to think about how will I feel later, right? Like,
Mm.
will I will I will I will I question whether or not I should have or shouldn't have done something rather than putting forth that effort and that risk and trying, right? So
Yeah.
for me, it was this element of like I see an opportunity And I think
Yeah.
that was another thing I learned about myself at the time too, was to trust my intuition and gut that I can sniff out opportunity and go at it, right? And try to get other people excited about potential opportunity,
Yeah.
to create value. And I think in that moment, I brought a value to the table that the team didn't necessarily know of, a skill set that I had. Um, and that was kind of a catalyst in the trajectory. The minute I did that video, all of a sudden, a lot of people were like, "What are you doing? You're doing that. Don't do that anymore. You're going to
Yeah.
start doing this." Right. And I, the nature of work started to change so much that the company I was with, it was just so different from anything that they had done. I switched to another agency and I started to learn this contracting world. And so I saw in a meeting, there was an agency for project management, an agency for creative, an agency for strategy. And my first thought was, what if you can be one agency to combine all of these disciplines and get rid of the complexity of a bad game of telephone? Because all these agencies
Yeah.
are competing against each other, right? And be an easy button for these executives to leverage one agency to support these initiatives. And so I brought this idea to the agency I was at the time, and they said, we're really not interested. We've tried that
It's
before.
interesting.
It's not
Okay.
something that we want to do. They were an agency that did have a little bit of creative. They were more so heavily weighted on the tech side. And so I kind of negotiated moonlighting on the side. Like, can I do this? They're like, sure, we don't want it. And so that's what I did. I started building my business on the side while still working, making sure there was no conflict. Um, and then someone, gave me good advice. Don't let go of something until you have something else firmly grasped. And I
Yeah.
worked the other job until I had to make a decision, which was risky, right? And I had basically gotten the revenue on the other side for consistently about 2 months to be about the same. And it was this decision of Jenny and I coming together and saying, I think I could spin off and try this out and see what would it be like to form our own entity, which was scary. I mean, I had an 8.5-year-old at the time, right? So
Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize that your first baby was already 8, not a baby anymore, right? Sounds like.
yeah, she was 8.5 months old, and yeah, we
Oh,
were trying to
sorry,
figure
eight
out
and a half months. I thought
months.
years. I'm like,
Oh,
hold
no, no,
up,
no.
my math
Yeah,
ain't
yeah.
mathing.
Mm-mm.
What? Wait a second,
No,
she's not
that'd be
25, right?
crazy. She'd be like
I
graduating
know.
high school right now. And
I
right
know
now I'm
she's a
like,
teen.
slow
Yes,
down. I know she's gonna be
I know.
13
Yeah,
next
yeah.
month,
Okay,
which
eight
is
and a
crazy.
half months. Yeah.
Eight
So
and a
okay, I
half
want to
months,
pick on
yeah.
something. I want to pick on something that you said a minute earlier, and I want to
Mm,
just pick your brain on like why
sure.
what prompted you. Jenny got pregnant with your first baby with Jordan, and
Mhm.
you said when you enter that chapter of life, you kind of start thinking about you
Mm,
know legacy and wealth building and things
right,
of that
right,
nature.
right.
Why do you think you thought that? Because I don't think that is the norm. I don't
Mm,
think most people form a family and think wealth,
mm,
legacy building. Like, how do I change my family's tree? I think most people, in my observation, go with the flow. Right? There's
mm,
there's almost a template that you just
mm,
kind of live by. And you get married, you get a job, and you pay the bills, and
mm,
you repeat that cycle. This is what I've observed. This is what I haven't looked up the data, but like I'm willing to bet it probably support that the majority of people are just kind of caught in that. I don't think there's the element of I have to build wealth for generational wealth or
mm.
what have you. Why did you think that? What prompted you to even like put that into like that's the North Star?
That's a good question. My mom was very wise with money, right? Partly because she didn't come from it, right? She was one of, I believe, five kids. My grandfather didn't even graduate middle school, right? And opened up a a car garage in a mechanic shop in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And my mom helped run the books and help run the shop and so on and so forth. And so there was this element to where she, I think, always felt a little insecure because she didn't have a college degree, right? But she was wicked smart, really, really smart. My dad, working for the post office, and he was a hard worker. She was really the one kind of casting the vision for, we lived in a pretty poor neighborhood, and then she saved enough money and then got to another neighborhood. And then they eventually built their own house, which was kind of an incredible feat, right? In a pretty prominent neighborhood. And so I just watched her navigate, knowledge is power. And the more knowledge that she gained, it gave her that confidence to continually kind of move forward. And so she would talk often about how important it was to be educated and to give back and look what we're building. This isn't just for us. This is for, your kids one day, and so on and so forth. So I think she helped to instill that vision. And also this trajectory shift, which was a little bit of pressure of like, you're going to be the first one to go to college sort of thing. Right. But the sacrifices that they made and watching how she saw this to be something that was really important, especially coming from um, a Hispanic family, right? She dealt with a lot of issues growing up in school. She definitely mentioned that they were looked down upon and called derogatory names and things of that nature. It was a different time back then, right? So I think for her, it was this element of finding her own confidence and knowing that the only thing that was separating her from that delta was just her own confidence in herself, right? And I think she instilled confidence in me and helped me think about that. And you know this, right? As you become a parent, the minute you're going to have a child, you start thinking larger, like, oh my gosh, my life isn't about me anymore. It's this
Right.
larger piece. So I think she definitely had um, a play in that for sure. Right. Now, there
And
were a
then
lot of things, they weren't perfect, right? That I learned by example and non-example, right? But no one's perfect.
we all
But I
do.
think,
We all
but
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But I think the minute that we had our first child and I started thinking through some of these pieces, there is this element of wealth generation. How do I set my kids up for success? What is
Mhm.
important? How do I teach them how to work hard and honorably and all of these sort of things, right? And so, but I don't know, it was important to me. It was like a switch, something switched in me, and it showed me how important that was to
Yeah.
be able to get back to them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What it makes total sense. There were seeds that were planted and they bloomed at the right time when the right environment was created, right? And which in this
Right.
case was we have a baby. It's no longer about us and what
Yeah.
does life and future really look like. So okay, then you are contracting for Microsoft. You're a
Yep.
project manager, which is, by the way, around the time that you and I met, because I
Correct.
was also a project manager in the
Correct.
same
Yep.
org.
Yes.
Um, and then you start working after that. I'm going to call it a viral video, which I don't think the word viral existed back in the day. Um,
Right.
but you made that video, right?
Mhm.
Mitra loved it, which I think she was the GM at the time,
Mhm.
and then it kind of, you know, you started building Red Door in parallel.
Correct.
Those were the invisible, I don't know, years. I suppose it must have been some time. Walk me through that process. Because you're working a full-time job. You have an eight and a half months old baby at home, and you're building an agency on the side.
Sure.
Walk me through what that looks like.
Yeah. Nights holding my baby, feeding my baby at 2 a.m., editing a video that I have to get out to an event. It was no, it was this element where Jenny and I sat down, and I remember it was New Year's Eve, and we've always done this really well in our marriage. Like every New Year's um, turn into the new year, we'll sit down and talk about what do we see for ourselves, what do we see for our family, what are
You
the
do the
things that
same
we
thing.
want
It's
to,
so cool.
yeah. And so we had talked about for a long time wanting to build something together. And
Mm-hmm.
so I remember when I was starting to get some momentum in that area, we wanted to name this thing, right? So we wanted a color,
Mm-hmm.
a symbol, and an encompassing word. So we're like, we're passionate. We come from these diverse backgrounds. She's part Duwamish tribe and Latina, and I'm Latino as well. And so we chose the color red because we're very passionate people, and red is a color of passion. And then we chose a door because we loved what that represented. We lived in Spain for a little while, and you're passing doors that are like 1,200, 1,500 years old. And for a family to invite you inside was a big deal. There was an element of trust and opportunity and to step into a world that was beyond your own. And I loved the symbol of what that encompassed. And then we chose the word collaborative because especially in a creative world, it's
Yeah.
very much a collaboration. Both parties have to come to the table to
Yeah.
endeavor together. It's not just this, you go be creative, but it's establishing great boundaries. Boundaries help creative freedom thrive, right? Because as
Mm-hmm.
creatives, we're chameleons. We're just trying to give the client what they want, but we need those parameters, and those parameters help create freedom and expression. And so we named it that night over a glass of wine, thinking about what could be. And we both kind of made a pact together, like, okay, we're going to do this thing. And not to say this is even going to be successful, but we're going to do this thing
We
together and the
try.
expectations exactly of what that means. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
be
Mm-hmm.
working more and we're going to try. And so I remember then it was the path of forming an LLC, starting to reach out and surround yourself with really intelligent people that help you, right? I remember meeting with an attorney. I remember meeting with the CPA and how do we do this? And how do we go about that? And just started chipping away over time. And then doing some biz dev on the side of getting other opportunities. So I think it was this, what is the vision? What do we want to do? Is this something we want to put risk, energy, and time into? It could fail. It might not work out. And then we made that decision together, right? And it
Yeah.
was a lot of work because I had a job and then I got off that job and then I had a job, right? So I had
Yep.
work, right? And ensuring that there were no conflicts of interest, but I was starting to build momentum and getting some notoriety and doing work that was so vastly different from my
Mm-hmm.
normal kind of day to day, right? And to your
Yeah.
point, like it's took a long time to get there and people didn't see what I was doing and on the weekends or after work hours and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. But it took
How
other
long was
people
that
believing
journey?
in me. Oh my gosh. I'd say it was almost about a solid year and a half, if not a little bit over, which doesn't sound like a lot of time, but when you're
Oh,
doing that
that's
consistently,
yes.
you know,
Yes.
um, and then I remember when something broke and I started to get more opportunity and more momentum. It was almost
Yep.
it was like I don't know. I remember someone telling me a while ago they were like, oftentimes people expect the no, but they don't expect the yes. Meaning when they're meeting with someone about, can I support you? It's the yes that's scary. It was like, oh
Yeah.
shoot, this is happening. This is starting to get some momentum. And what does that mean? And how are we going to manage this? And
Yeah.
all these other things started to happen. And so I remember Jenny and I sat down and it was, okay, we've been endeavoring and working and this is shifting and changing. What do we want to do?
Because it's
Um,
not the state. You can't do both in the same
exactly.
capacity forever. Yeah.
Exactly. And also we have a child and we have health insurance here and, all of those sort of
Yes. A
pieces.
lot of
There's more,
implications.
yeah, there's security
Yep.
here and we're taken
Yeah.
care of and I can take this safe path and that'll help us. We wanted to have another child at that time. And so Jenny, we
Mhm.
found out we were pregnant, which was exciting, but also like, okay, yeah,
Double the
another,
scary. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And
Yep.
so I think we started to kind of follow that path of, are we comfortable? Is this something we want to do and endeavor to do together? Right. And so we started to follow that path and then made the decision together. And I remember calling, I remember it clear as day. It was in the morning. I was in the basement of my house at the time. And I was super nervous to tell my boss, who had been great, that I was
Yeah.
going to be leaving. And when he asked me, what I was going to be doing. I said I was going to be starting my own company, and he like chuckled, right? It's like, are you sure? Like, it really? Like, that's what you're going to be doing? And I
Interesting.
had a couple of people at that time too. They're like, you have young kids, are you sure? And those sort of things. And absolutely, I think people want to make sure that you're okay and you're taking the appropriate amount of risk. And at the end of the day, everything's risky. I think it was
Yeah.
a risk. I think some people see the switch and the change, and it could feel abrupt to them, not knowing that you've been working on this for a year and a half. And even before that year and a half, you were building the confidence and the skill set and
Yeah.
all of those things. So there was tons of lead time until that switch happened. I think that switch messed with people's psyche because they were processing it in real time, not knowing that a lot of work had been happening on the back end to get to that point. Right.
Isn't that amazing? Because you would think people who surround you, who know what it takes to get to a certain height of a mountain, like the amount of hiking you have to do to get to the top, would still not expect it. Like, as common sense as it is that no success is overnight, there is a subconscious expectation and stigma around it that like somehow it just happened so fast and quick, and it took you a year and a half of sleepless nights, no weekends, working double full-time shifts to make that happen, not to mention the years of training and skill and experience that you've had before that. I was talking to my husband this morning, actually. I'm like, this is a pattern. Every successful person I have spoken to, this is what it takes. It's like you plant a seed in good soil, and you give it the sun, and you give it the water, and you give it the oxygen, and you baby it, and nothing shows on the surface. There's just nothing that's visible. And it's so easy to lose heart, and it's so easy to think that it just got rotten somewhere in the soil. And then after some time, depending on whatever you planted and what it, I think that's the nuance there. It just overnight, like, oh, here's it germinated, here's the stem, and here's the flowers, and it blooms, and then you can't stop it because it's like producing, right? Like, here's the harvest. That seems to be the pattern of, you have to be patient, you have to stay put and walk that talk and walk the course and stay the course and not give up, because that sun, that water, the small steps and rituals and things that are disciplinary and like just your discipline being invested every day will yield. One day you will wake up and it'll feel like it's an overnight something happened. The truth is, it just had the opportunity to germinate enough, right? And kind of like sprout through that soil and be visible. So that visibility happens seemingly overnight, but my goodness, what it takes, right?
Yeah.
What would you say was the biggest challenge? Like something that you just felt extremely frustrated, exhausted over, and felt like there's just a tunnel with no light at the end of it in the process of, growing your own baby, and not literally baby, like your, Red Door, and setting that up both legally, like I remember, right, the legal stuff of making it compliant to serve these bigger clients with creative work, with other kinds of work.
Sure.
What was some of the biggest sort of rocks you had to move to make that happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, first off, I can say that I wouldn't be here without the mentorship and help and support and people that sponsored us along the way too. That was huge. I feel there's a friend of mine, his name is Jeff Goins. He's written a couple of books, but he talks about it in one of his books in terms of what he calls accidental apprenticeships. So people in your life that are in your life for a moment of time that you get a lot of good things out of. And there's just a period of time where if you recognize it and see it, they're going to be monumental for you and help support you in those areas. And I had a lot of that at the time. So that was I felt very, very fortunate. People encouraging, people supporting, people creating opportunity. I think for me, it was this element of I had worked at different um, contracting companies, and I saw how large they were, and I saw their infrastructure and all of these sort of pieces. And I wanted to become a supplier at Microsoft, and it seemed like a daunting task. I seemed like a very small fish in a very, very large pond with companies that were well established, that had great brand identity and history and relationships and all of this. And so, although I was excited, I was also really nervous that I would kind of get crushed in that environment, right? And it took a little bit of time. I remember getting the invitation to be invited, which was not a guarantee, and filling out all the information and even just little things here and there as an entrepreneur. I remember seeing the insurance that was needed for a company. And I remember running out and being like, oh gosh, I need to have this limit. Okay. Going out and finding
Yeah.
all the pieces. And it's kind of like learning to fly the airplane at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think I was just really nervous of what if I spend all this energy and all this time and it doesn't work out, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't materialize in the way that I thought. And that was a little nerve wracking, right? Because I'm the one leading my family and so on and so forth. But I think for me, I wanted to see it through. I wanted to really see, is this something that we can do? And I remember it was very anticlimactic. I remember getting the invitation email saying that you had been accepted, right? And I even had
Yeah.
a couple of people in Microsoft where when I sent all the information off, that were like, you're not going to get accepted. They don't accept small companies like you. And I was like,
Wow.
okay, right? Like the worst thing that someone could say and do is no, right?
Right.
My mom always taught me that. She's like, just try. And
Yeah.
so you're gonna
What do you
get
have
a
to
lot
lose?
of, yeah, you're gonna get a lot of naysayers. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes those naysayers really care about you, and they, in their mind, want to save you from the heartache of disappointment, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
want you to fail
Mm-hmm.
and all of these sort of pieces. And so you have to really kind of move forward with your own convictions, and you have to trust yourself and be okay with that level of failure or lack thereof. And for me, I had to go find out on my own, right? And so I was like,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that you care about me, and we have thought about this. We are mitigating risk. And you can mitigate risk all you want, but you'll never completely get rid of risk of that stepping off of the cliff sort of piece, right?
Yeah.
And you're, cliff diving sort of thing. And at the end of the day, when I think about it, I'm really, really glad that we took that risk. But I
Mm-hmm.
also look back and it's a lot of work. And also sometimes when you think about the dream of what you envision, if you don't pay attention, you can miss the fact that you're living in what you had hoped to attain years and years ago. And I'm in that right now, right? And it doesn't mean it's like, the plane came above the clouds and we're soaring at 30,000 feet. There's still a lot happening, and I'm still learning, and I'm still risking, and I'm still failing, and all of these sort of pieces. It just means that I'm wearing different hats, and I've been able to hire incredible staff and share that vision with them. But I'm still, in a lot of ways, still trying to figure out what Red Door is in 2025 and what value do we have to offer, right? Uh, but to your point, those were some of those stepping stones I had to get over and really like know in my heart of hearts that what I was doing is my own personal conviction. And I was okay with
Yeah.
that. And to not take it personally when people weren't supportive of that. And even kind of see that in their lack of support, they were still trying to show up
Mhm.
for me. You know what I mean? And still be like, thank
Yeah.
you so much. I appreciate that concern. I realize we have a baby. I realize this is probably the time I
Yeah.
need good health insurance and all of that, but this is what we're going to do. I appreciate it, sort of thing. So, yeah.
That's very interesting. People definitely have different ways of expressing care and
Yes.
concern, and certainly a valid one, but not doesn't feel encouraging in the moment, right?
Mm
Um,
hmm. Mm hmm.
how how many people are part of Red Door today?
Yeah. We have 42 W-2 employees. I believe only two of them are part-time employees. And then we have a host of other contractors that we help bring on and flex in with. And so um, to get to that point, it doesn't seem like it's a lot of people, but it is. And the one thing I've learned over time is that people work for people, not for companies. And so if you can instill that trust and be clear about your vision and what you're building, that helps people to help come alongside of that vision and own it with you, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's kind of wild where we've come from.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
That's really remarkable. Because when I started, I think we were 5 people on the team.
Yes,
Like total. Red Door was
five
a
people.
company of 5.
Yes. And to that
Yeah.
point too, you had a potential offer with Microsoft. And so
Yeah.
it'd be really easy for someone to say, you've made an offer to this person, but so has Microsoft. There's no way you're going to compete with that. Right. And for me, it was if I had believed that, you would have never come on board. Right.
Yeah.
And so there's this element of don't discredit your vision and what you want to do in light of all these circumstantial things that can paint a narrative that sometimes isn't true, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
had I not pursued that, you would have never worked for Red Door. And there were
Yeah.
certain pieces and elements that you saw in working with us over a larger entity that worked really well for you at the time, right?
Yeah.
And
Um,
so yeah.
there were 4 offers from 4 different companies when I
Oh wow.
decided that I want to join Red Door. Microsoft was one of them. You were
That's
another
right.
one, and there were 2 other mid-sized companies.
That's right.
There's similar business model. And I remember, me, right? I'm a person of faith, and I process everything in my life through my faith and
Right.
what I feel in my gut is the right thing to do. And I remember talking to my husband about it. I remember praying about it. And I just remember the clarity on like
Mm.
this is the right path against all odds because, of a lot of things, but it just felt so right. And so to your point, I think, people work for people, not for companies. I think that professional bond and the friendship that we've built just working together, me seeing, how you see the future. And I think it was so clear like how energetic and visionary you were and inspiring. Really, the bottom line was like you were not going to take no for an answer. You're going to move through whatever you have to move through and still get to that vision. And it may be altered in the process, but on your terms and because of your own accord and not because of what people say and how they decided to change the picture for you and the vision for you.
Sure.
So I just think that was so inspiring. And honestly, like the longing of working for a company that felt like family. So yeah, it's remarkable to hear that Red Door is 42 people now and, plus, part-timers and plus contractors. But I have no doubt it still feels like very much like family. And so that's really, it's just really exciting. And I'm so happy for you and for Jenny and just what you have built
Yeah.
together.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think there's so many things when I reflect back on that as well, of thinking about the risks that we took, our own personal faith journey as well, of, thinking through, is this something we want to do? Is this something that we want to be a part of? That was a big part at the time as well, of really thinking through, okay, we're praying about it as well. Is this something we want to be a part of? Um, all of those sort of things. And so
Yeah.
reflecting back on all of that, we had some support and in other areas we didn't. But at the end of the day, I think you build that personal confidence and you really weigh out what is it that you need to really help that dream or vision come true. That can be a personal career goal or path, right? And looking for the accidental apprenticeships in your life and at that time to help support you, right? And sometimes Sometimes it can be the opposite. Sometimes it might be turning something down that you just don't feel is the right time or the right place for you, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone wants to start a company, nor should.
No,
Right?
yeah, it's not for
Um,
everyone.
it's not. I just have a lot of history of working at smaller companies and being able to see it and learn. And it was something I always really wanted to do. And so did Jenny. And so we were able to do that together. And now we're part of this incredible company, and we're not perfect. We still have a lot of challenges and things to fix, but I feel we have a really great people that have come alongside us that share that vision and that dream together, that are
Yeah.
helping to make Red Door better than I could have ever done by myself and Jenny and I together, right? And it's a really humbling to see people care for something that you care for, that you've put in,
Mhm.
blood, sweat, and tears, really, right, to
Yes.
grow and endeavor and build. It's a really humbling thing to see that,
Hmm.
right? So, and that's
Yeah.
where we're at today. So,
Okay. My closing question, because I do want to be respectful of your time. In the landscape of today and what we're dealing with, right? Which
yeah.
is, I think, uncharted territory in many ways. But I wonder how are you navigating that with Red Door as well as like personally as a leader?
Sure.
Um, and then two, what do you say to the young Chris out there
Mm.
who is starting or thinking of starting something of their own, and embarking on that journey of, I want to build something of my own and I want to grow it, and I believe in something, right, that will
Mm.
add value to people's lives. Um, what do you say to them in terms of not to do? What is the advice
Mm.
you'll give them? Like, don't do that.
Mm.
Because I think I want you to also say what you would tell them, but I want you to first tell them, like, what would you not do? Everyone is quick to say, do this, do this, do that. Tell me like what not to do. So
Oh
first
man.
question and a second.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, first off, I think we can agree that AI is changing so many things
Yeah.
culturally,
Yeah.
personally, professionally. I feel like it's a technology disruptor as on the same playing field as when the internet first launched. I mean, there were newspaper
Mm-hmm.
articles that mentioned the internet was a fad. The big technology disruptor, and I believe AI is going to be the same way. We typically fear what we don't understand. And so I do feel AI is going to change a lot. And so for me as an organization, instead of fearing it and staying away, we're digging in a little bit and really knowing, as I mentioned before, knowledge is power. And if you don't have the knowledge, you feel powerless, right? So I'm encouraging people to not be afraid of it, but how can they leverage it to help upscale themselves, to help add additional value in these areas. And there's a lot of unknowns in the future, but how can you embrace these tools and technologies for yourself and then collectively with the team and then offer that value as a whole? And really how you feel about it is really irrelevant. It's here, it's already here. And so I think what are those personal convictions about yourself, how you want to leverage it and utilize this technology? I think that's really important as well. Um, and then don't be afraid to try things. Don't be afraid to leverage it and use it. You're gonna you're gonna fail a lot, right? I think I read an article that was like 87% of all AI projects fail. So the innovation and the resources and the investments are there, and it's iterating very, very rapidly. Um, to your second question in terms of, what would I not do? Um, I That's a great question. I think the best way to learn how to lead well is to also learn how to follow well. That's my own personal conviction. So I would suggest before you just run out and start your own company, find someone that's building something and come alongside them and help support them in building that vision, right? So find a startup, find that culture. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn what not to do. You're going to learn what to do. You're going to see even the mental load and emotional load that comes with running something and owning something. It isn't just about tactics and skill. It's also about self-care and how managing stress, how to show up when it's hard to show up. You're
Reach.
gonna learn a lot of these things that they are not gonna teach you in a business course, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to pay attention to the numbers. Obviously, you have to
But those
be
are things that you
have a
can
good business
find
plan. That's
in a
right.
textbook. Yes.
But
Yeah.
no, but there's not going to be there are no instructions for what do you do when you have to meet payroll in a couple of weeks, and what do you do when the industry is shifting and you have to change certain pieces, and you have to get your team on board, and you have to champion that change that might not be culturally celebrated, right? There's a lot of the psyche associated with it. And so I think I would go, if I were to go back in time, I would find a smaller agency that I feel aligns with my values and what I want to do. And then I would endeavor to help support and build that vision, because you're going to learn a lot. And those are going to give you the tools and the grit if you still want to continue to build something to do it on your own. Right. But I think oftentimes there is a lot of value to be had in, maybe building your own thing isn't necessarily it. You might find a lot of value in helping to partner and build someone else's dream. And that might become yours, and you might become partners in that endeavor, right? So I think in order to lead really, really well, you have to learn what it means to be a good follower
It's
and
a really
learn.
good advice.
Yeah. So that's what I noticed, those accidental apprenticeships and helping to support even smaller businesses when I was young, and paw shops, just watching them navigate challenge and
Yeah.
have success and have failure. And um, those things breed character and confidence. So I think that's really, really important, because when you're on the line and you're the one and there's no one to your left and your right, you're going to have to make decisions that are tough decisions. Um, and knowing that you have the confidence and character to do those things, I think, is paramount. So,
Yeah. That is really, really good advice. I would pay for that advice, especially when it comes to setting boundaries and self-care when you're an entrepreneur and when you're building something from ground zero, right? There's
yeah,
just uh, knowledge and wisdom that is not taught in the textbook.
yeah, yeah.
That's
The
really
grit
great.
of it, the element of remaining true and continue to work, those are the things that aren't discussed. Enduring,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And managing that stress is really in a healthy way, in a healthy
Yeah.
way. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
In a sustainable way. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Well, this was a really great conversation. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.
It's really just you know, such a small fraction of the big story and the personality that I think you embody. And so much I have learned from you, and I hope that our listeners have as well. And thank you. Thanks again for being my friend and for being here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And I just want to say to anyone out there that's thinking of building something is I full recognize everyone that's been a support in helping Jenny and I build this company. And so there's too many thank yous, countless thank yous to remember all. But to when you reflect back on things, yourself included, there are a lot of yeses and people and help and support to get us where we were at that we couldn't have done it ourselves. And so don't don't forget all the people that have gotten here thus far. And so I think
Yes.
even this is a humbling conversation, knowing where we're at and where we came from and where we hope to go. So thanks for having me. And my hope is that someone hears some of this and that helps support them in their journey in terms of their next
Yes.
steps and
I
where
have
they
no
want
doubt
to
about
go.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no doubt it will.